Howdy, folks. It is an off week, which means I don't have a news story for you today, but I do have another Untold Tales from this side of nowhere retold. And it's coming to you live. Okay, well, this part is live. The rest was pre-recorded. Anyways, you're still going to get a story after this message from our sponsors. This week, our sponsor is Basin Pharmacy in Basin, Wyoming. Basin Pharmacy is your hometown pharmacy, as well as your source for over-the-counter medicine, vitamins, and supplements. They also carry office supplies, Russell Stover's chocolates, and greeting cards. The friendly folks at Basin Pharmacy are happy to help with any of your medicinal needs, whether you have a prescription to fill or a question about your meds. You can stop in Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to noon. We are also sponsored by the Wyoming Welcome Program. The Wyoming Welcome Program offers two services to local businesses: Table Talk and the Wyoming Welcome Baskets. Wyoming Welcome Baskets are filled with promotional items for local businesses and distributed to new move-ins to the Bighorn Basin. Table Talk brochures include jokes, facts about the state of Wyoming, the month's holidays, and advertisements from our local businesses. These brochures are placed on restaurant tables in Cody and Powell for diners to peruse. So if you'd like to get your business name out there, please contact the folks at the Wyoming Welcome Program by shooting an email to Haley J, that's HALEYJ, at wyomingwelcome.com. Do you have a noxious weed problem? The team at 307 Pest Management can help. We offer residential and commercial noxious weed management that is safe and affordable. Whether you have a parking lot, a yard, or some production land that needs treated for noxious weeds, 307 Pest Management is ready to help get your weeds under control. Give them a call today for a free quote at 307-250-0614 or send an email to 307pestmanagement@gmail.com. Like I said, it is Untold Tales Retold, and today I'm bringing back one of those oldies but goodies from the first year of the podcast. This episode dropped on February 4th, 2023, so just a little over 3 years ago, and it is called Time Gone By. So, here you go. An untold tale from this side of nowhere, from days gone by, called Time Gone By. Hope you enjoy it. Time Gone By. One of the best things about being in the great outdoors is the opportunity it gives you to escape from the hustle and bustle of civilization and the constant distractions of the modern world. I've often thought of this as the most important theme of one of my favorite Tom Hanks movies, Castaway. Before Hank's character gets stranded on the deserted island and starts talking to a volleyball, he is so consumed by time it seems to be the focus of his life. He obsesses over meeting deadlines and making good time, so much so that he loses sight of what's really important in life, like family, relationships, and fishing. Only after being marooned on the island does he realize time is merely a human construct, and his outlook on life changes completely. For my part, I can relate to Hank's character. Life seems to be one constant scramble to be on time for this meeting or to finish a project before that deadline. When we aren't watching the clock wishing time would move faster, we're eyeing the calendar wishing a vacation would last longer. But all of that changes when one is immersed in the great outdoors. When you're outside in the middle of nowhere, basking in creation, time seems to fall behind, like the lingering smell of exhaust fumes and the blaring of horns and crowds of people. Before you know it, you, like Hanks, have been liberated from the constraints of the clock, and you find yourself experiencing a natural reality that is beyond time. I once entered this natural state on a 50-mile backpacking trip as a young Boy Scout in Troop 41. After about the third day into the hike, we no longer found ourselves bothered by trivial things like time. Impossible as it seems, any sense of hours and minutes ceased to exist there in the wild expanse of the Cloud Peak wilderness. I remember distinctly when I began to notice we had left the world of time and numbers behind. It was at least 3 hours after we hit the trail on the third day of the hike. "Hey, Eli," I panted. "How much longer until we stop for lunch?" Scoutmaster Eli Lyman grinned back at us with that maniacal gleam in his eye unique to men who have spent countless hours surrounded by teenage boys. "Oh, about another hour, I reckon," he said. Nodding, the rest of us boys hitched our packs up from where they had been dragging out our tracks and trudged on after Eli. We could make it another hour for sure. With new resolve, I hiked along, staring at the back of my twin brother Fred's head and gasping for air, not so much due to the strain of the hike straight up the vertical face of a boulder-strewn ridge, but on account of the pair of socks hanging from Fred's pack. The smell wilted grass and caused wildflowers to droop as we passed. In spite of the strength of the stench emanating from Fred's socks, I had become more or less accustomed to the odors of man and boy after the days of hiking, and now my only reaction to the smell of the decomposing socks was watering eyes and the occasional retching. Everyone has their limits, though, and after 6 hours dragged by, I finally couldn't take it any longer. "Eli, can we stop for lunch yet?" I gasped. Exasperated, he growled, "You just asked 10 minutes ago. Can't you boys just enjoy the beauty of the outdoors for once? We'll stop soon." 10 minutes? I blurted out, clinging to a nearby boulder as I caught my breath. "Yup," Eli replied. "Oh my gosh," I murmured. "It's happened. Time has ceased to exist, Wilson." "Al, would you quit talking to that volleyball?" Fred grumbled. "It's really starting to get on my nerves." He turned to glare at me. "Where did that ball come from anyway?" That wasn't the only hike I've been on where time was suspended. I remember one endeavor with Troop 41 in which the objective was to hike down Trapper Canyon in 2 days' time. Everyone knows that before venturing into the outdoors, you should tell someone where you're going and when you plan to be back. And so it was that we told my mom our plan. "We're going to start up at the homestead and hike down the canyon," Dad explained. "We'll meet you at the bottom on Saturday afternoon." "Sounds good," Mom replied. "Oh, and I was thinking it might be nice if you brought some pizzas when you come to pick us up at the end," Dad added. Mom trained a wary eye on Dad. "This isn't going to be one of those hikes where time gets suspended, is it?" Mom asked. "What? No," Dad replied. "Of course not. We'll be back on Saturday afternoon, by 2 at the latest." "Okay," Mom said dubiously. "But be sure you're on time. I don't want all the pizza to get cold." The entire drive up the mountain, we reassured Mom the hike was a simple one and there was absolutely no way we could be late. All we had to do was follow the creek down the mountain. The whole hike was downhill. How hard could it be? When Mom dropped us off, we smiled broadly while she snapped pictures. "Just in case I need them to print missing posters later," as she said. Mothers have such a wonderful sense of humor. "See you Saturday at 2, Fred shouted after her as she disappeared in a cloud of dust. "And don't forget to bring the pizza," I added cheerfully. To think she was worried we would come out late on Saturday. Really, you would think she had previous experience with us getting home later than planned. With a spring in the step of each scout, we headed down the trail and then down into the canyon. As luck would have it, though, the United States Geological Survey had somehow made multiple egregious errors when they mapped out Trapper Canyon, errors which we only discovered on day 2 of what would become a 3-day hike. It wasn't the errors, however, that made the hike take longer than planned. As is inevitable on such an outing, time ceased to exist sometime on Saturday morning. I can't place my finger directly on the moment when it happened, but I first noticed something was off when we were clawing our way along what Dad called a trail, but may have been traversed by a single elk, and a mentally unstable one at that. I calculated it would take us about an hour to reach the bend in the distance, but soon found that time and space had been swallowed up by the aura of the outdoors. You see, when I glanced up from the small greasewood I was strangling in an attempt to remain perched on the canyon wall, I realized the shadow cast by the rim of the canyon had started creeping up our side of the ravine. A distance that should have taken us a mere hour to hike had somehow taken up 3 or maybe even 4. That night, we made camp on an uneven, rocky shelf near the creek. After a few tries, Fred and I managed to ignite a smoldering brush fire to help keep us from breathing too much clean mountain air while we waited for it to get dark. Gee, some pizza would be awful good about now, Fred sighed while he and I and the other scouts huddled around the smoking pile of greasewood. Yeah, I agreed absent-mindedly. It seems you just can't escape the vortex of time in the outdoors, Fred continued. He stared at the crackling fire for a moment before laughing. Huh, and to think Mom thought we would be coming out on Saturday. Yeah, funny, I chuckled without looking up, intent on my work. Al, would you quit drawing faces on that volleyball? You're giving everyone the creeps. If you've never been a Boy Scout, then you may not relate to my previous 2 examples, but I'm sure you can commiserate with me when it comes to fishing trips. It seems like no matter how long a fishing trip is supposed to take, it ends up taking longer than planned. Or at least, that's what my wife Lily keeps telling me. She almost banned me from fishing once when a fishing trip up the Grable River that was supposed to take all day ended up taking up a good chunk of the night, too. It was soon after Lily and I had moved back to Wyoming that Dad invited me to go out with him and my younger brother Caldwell. Before we left, I assured Lily we would definitely be back by 4 o'clock at the latest. Only after swearing up and down we wouldn't get sucked into the void of time did she allow me to go. But if you are 1 minute late, I swear I'll never let you fish again, Lily growled, waving a finger in my face. Don't worry, I said, following her finger with my eyes. I had heard this particular speech at least a dozen times before. We'll be back by 4, maybe even 3. I promise. The next morning, we left nice and early so we could get a jump on the outdoors and catch them unawares. This way we'll be sure to get back by 4 o'clock, I told my dad as we bounced along the rocky dirt road to the trailhead. If we get on the trail by 7, the outdoors won't even see us coming. We can get in and get out before time ceases to exist. You and your theories about time and space, Dad chuckled. We'll be back by 4, no problem. At 6 o'clock p.m., when we got back to the truck, I looked at my watch in surprise. Great Scott, it's happened again. I could have sworn we only fished for a couple more hours after lunch. Yeah, Caldwell said. Can I have your fly rod, seeing as Lily isn't ever going to let you go fishing again? Not a chance, I said. Don't worry. If we hurry, we'll be home before it gets dark. By the time it got dark, we had just finished changing the flat tire the mountain road inflicted on Dad's truck some 20 miles from the river. When we all clambered wearily back into the cab of the truck, Dad groaned. "I told your mom we would be back by at least 8. Caldwell grinned at us. "Can I have both your fishing rods?" "Not a chance," we shouted back. When I got home at 10 p.m., I tried my hardest to explain to Lily about the holes in the fabric of space and time that seemed to line up perfectly with the best fishing holes on the Grable River, but it seemed she just couldn't get her head around the idea. Some topics having to do with the outdoors just aren't on a woman's radar, I guess. For Caldwell's part, he tells me my fly rod is treating him very well at college. I expect it will do so until he finds a girlfriend who also doesn't understand about time and the outdoors. After years of getting trapped in the temporal black hole of the outdoors, I have stumbled across a solution to the entire problem. Whenever I'm going to venture out into the great outdoors, I simply calculate how long I expect to be gone, and then double the time when reporting to my wife how long I will be absent. Following this formula, a simple fishing trip becomes an endeavor that will last at least 3 days. Yes, Lily is livid at first, and it's all I can do to convince her to let me go, but in the end, I come out the hero when I'm gone for only 2 days. This method works well, even when applied to smaller encounters with the outdoors, such as, say, watering the lawn or going out to fetch the mail. It was difficult at first for Lily to accept the idea. It might take me an hour to walk 20 yards from the front porch and back, but when the trip took only a half hour, since I had to do some weeding and tinker around with the lawnmower on the way, she came to see the value in my reasoning. It's a nice arrangement where no one gets surprised, and I can come home before a deadline, thereby preserving my outdoor privileges. I was really beginning to think my wife didn't comprehend the concepts discussed in this piece. It seemed she just didn't have the foggiest idea what I meant when I talked about time ceasing to exist. But it's been 2 days, and I'm still sitting here, waiting in the car parked outside of Target. Maybe she knows about the voids in time and space after all, huh, Wilson? And so there you have it, another untold tale from this side of nowhere. Thanks for listening, and be sure to follow the podcast so you're updated as soon as another episode is released. If you have any questions, feedback, or want to share a story of your own, email me at untoldtalesthepodcast@gmail.com. And so we'll see you next time here on Untold Tales from this side of nowhere, where we work twice as hard for half as much and still find time for the important things, like fishing. See you next time.